So the 230 is just like,
I think it's money way too long to give it down.
God, he's getting ready to write a check for 1.2
Yeah.
billion.
well,
with a
that
capital
he
B.
knows that the return on investment is going to be there. Although there is one fly in the ointment. If you colossally suck when you move to this new dome, this is what no one has figured in yet. I've done some research and I've looked into what teams charge when they build these new mega complexes. The Chargers have the most expensive average ticket price in the NFL. If you suck, this fan base, which is loyal to a fault, this fan base will stop if the price gets, because we have a breaking point.
Oh, for sure.
And if he F's around and finds out what that is, he might be sitting on a $1.2 billion dinosaur.
Now is not the time to be trying to sell PSLs at a new stadium.
No, it isn't.
This is not the time to be pissing off Browns fans more than they already pissed off.
Well, wait until the ticket. Now I know it's 5 years away, and that is 2 lifetimes in the NFL.
But to your point, look at new Yankee Stadium. They can't. They have a hard time filling it up.
I know.
And that easily could happen here. So that, and I said that once we started talking about new dome, I said I'm all in favor of it. But the one thing is, the lifelong fans are going to get a real dose of sticker shock when they see what it's going to cost them to get into this place. And that's just for the tickets. That's not even the PSL and all the bull crap you got to pay up front just to get in line to get the ticket.
Yeah, I think a story that we're going to be talking a lot about in 5 years, if and when this dome becomes reality, because, by the way, I heard from a pretty powerful player in town that's very plugged in and has knows where the money is and how it moves. He's adamant. They ain't moving.
They're not moving?
That's what he said. And I said, explain that to me. And he said, and I brought up the point that he can have a bake sale and make $500 million.
Yeah.
He can now sell 10% of the Browns.
Yeah.
He said, I know Jimmy. His ego's too big. He's not taking on a partner, number one. Number two, this fight, and by the way, he filed a lawsuit yesterday against the city of Cleveland. How you feel about that? This fight is happening because Jimmy doesn't want to pay the $1.2 billion. Jimmy wants government money, public money. My source tells me, and this is through he's been an observer of Cleveland politics and the money scene here for 30 years. He knows how things move. He just said, I don't see it, and I see multiple hurdles in the way. First and foremost is the fight with the city. He's going to get no city money, no county money, zero. He thinks he's going to get money from the state. He's not going to get as much as he thinks because you've also got Cincinnati with their handout. His premise is Jimmy wants this, but he doesn't want to pay for it. And we've always said Jimmy gets what he wants.
Yep.
Well, what he wants is a handout. He wants at least half of this to be paid for by someone else.
He ain't getting that.
I don't see where that comes from now. And the other thing that I think is what we're touching on here, he said he is from Tennessee. His advisors are not from Ohio. They don't understand the Cleveland fan. As long as they've been here and been doing business, they don't understand us. And I said, what does that mean? And he said, if he thinks that this blindly loyal fan base that followed him off a cliff to 0-16 and came back the next year, if he thinks that we're going to do that at a higher price tag, he doesn't understand the market. The money isn't here.
Yeah.
And you brought up New York, and I'm glad you did, because when they built Yankee Stadium, there were some sports experts that had said, I think there was even an article in Forbes about this, or one of the sites that cover these things. They are overestimating the number of people that have the money that they think they have. In other words, Wall Street money, we can charge whatever we want. Watch any Yankee game.
Empty.
Now, the playoff games are sold out, of course.
The seats around home plate, empty.
Empty. And it is a big problem for this franchise. A huge problem. Because when they did their long-range financial planning, they baked that into the bread. That money was always going to be there. It's New York. Wall Street people will buy these tickets up. They didn't.
Yeah.
And they haven't. Now, they haven't won a World Series in a long time. If they win this year, let's see what happens next year. But the Cleveland money is not like that. What do when there are big games? We sell our tickets so we can finance next year's season ticket bill.
I want to respond to what Jay said, but Ant, you got to read.
Yeah, let me get this read in real quick, guys, and then we'll keep going. It's been tough for the Cleveland fans, as we have hit on, but there's only one Cleveland, and there's only one gutter guard for the toughest fans in the world, and that's leaf filter. Every installation is a permanent solution to the clogged gutters. It comes with a lifetime no-clog guarantee. Leaf Filter uses award-winning patented technology to keep out everything but water. No holes, gaps, or large openings for debris. And over 1 million homeowners have used and trusted Leaf Filter for their gutters. Schedule your free inspection now and for a limited time, get 32% off your entire qualified purchase and 2 free Browns jerseys at leaffilter.com/UCSS. That's a free inspection, up to 32% off, and 2 free Browns jerseys with a qualifying purchase at leaffilter.com/UCSS. Offer valid as first come, first served basis while supplies last. Full terms and conditions can be found at leaffilter.com/UCSS. See representatives for warranty details.
So when you're talking about the stadium and the financing and all that, the county's already told them once, you stay where you're at. And I'm curious to see the Browns. I feel like are confident that there's still money to be had there. They're very confident in the state.
And I think from the guy that I'm talking to, they're banking on something that won't be there.
The Guardians,
to the extent that they think it's going to be there.
I just looked it up. The Guardians didn't get a lot from the state, but they did get state money.
They did, and they did not get a big number. It wasn't what they wanted. And
I believe, from my understanding of it, the Browns feel like they're in front of the Bengals in the line, in the handout line, because they are putting in far more private money than the Bengals are. Like, is the Brown family going to write a check for $1 billion? Absolutely not. So they feel like, I think the Browns feel like they're in a good standing in terms of the state money. DeWine's on board. Houston's on board. The lieutenant governor, who's probably more than likely going to win the election. The governor's race, I think, could play a role in this 2 years out from now.
Yep.
And as of now, like, who has the most money typically is who wins the election. And Houston is far outpacing. Last I looked, and I haven't looked in a few months.
He still is.
Houston was far outpacing Yost in terms of fundraising. Mm-hmm. So that early, I mean, we got a long ways to the governor's race, but an early indication it's probably going to be Houston. And if that's the case, I think the Browns feel pretty good about where this is headed. But I don't know that they're going to, I mean, they're not getting $500 million from the state, certainly.
And that's what they're asking for. That's what they want, half of this to be covered by miracle money.
Public money.
Elves.
Right.
My guy told me that, yes, you're right, the governor race is going to have something to do with it. But also, you have to understand that there are 2 major players in this state when it comes to Ohio politics. Obviously, Columbus is also a third, but Cincinnati and Cleveland. Mm-hmm. You can't do for Cleveland what you don't do for Cincinnati and vice versa. You can't, because even though there are more votes in Cleveland, the Cincinnati metro area is a large metro area and provides a lot of votes. It's ultimately going to end up on what the public opinion polls show. And the reason I bring that up is because I believe that the ship has sailed on billionaires getting handouts from taxpayers. We've seen it on one ballot referendum after another. In markets, by the way, where sports is king.
Which is why they're not even taking it to the ballot.
They know better.
Yeah.
However, if you're going to now tie a politician to that, you're in trouble, because that could be political suicide if all the public opinion polls show what they have nationally. We are done paying for billionaires' hobbies. We're done with that. And by the way, I think that is, and I don't want to get too political, but I think it's about damn time we're done with it.
I agree with that.
All of the needs that our city has, and you're going to ask the city to write this massive check that provides jobs for people on maybe 10 days a year.
Yeah.
It's misspent money, and we've figured that out. And Jimmy's going to figure that out the hard way, because even if he doesn't put a referendum on the ballot, which he won't, he's going to try to backdoor it and get it done through politicians.
Yeah.
Well, those politicians are beholden to us. And if we're 75% against giving public money to stadiums, I don't think you're going to find any politician, whoever wins that governor's race, willing to commit political suicide and hand out hundreds of millions of dollars to rich people.
The hammer that Jimmy does not have and I mentioned this a week or two on the show. I don't think you were here. In all of these battles where these owners are trying to get these new stadiums, the hammer that they hold is, give me what I want or I'm leaving. Give me what we want or we'll leave when the lease is up. There's other cities who will give us everything that we want. They can't do that here because of the Modell Law that they're about to fight in court, whether they can even get to Brook Park. So because of that, the county can puff out its chest and say, stay where you are. We're not giving you a dime.
Go back to your room.
Because they don't have leverage. The Browns don't have leverage on this, especially because the condition of the franchise right now.
And Jason, not to be mentioned here, but I'll bring it up, the NFL isn't going to let that happen to Cleveland again.
Correct.
So,
and there's the Modell Law will keep them in Cleveland.
It's ironclad.
They have no hammer on that.
Now, what they sued about yesterday was clarity on the Modell Law.
Well, this is going to get interesting. Like I about 6 months ago, I was poking around with people who are well versed in this stuff, who read the Modell Law and said it's pretty clear that it says the city of Cleveland. Now, I think the Browns are going to argue intent. Or sort of like, listen, we're going 10 miles over the border. Or maybe they come up with a deal where they literally they reroute city lines and make Brook Park part of Cleveland. You know what I mean? Like you write a check big enough and stranger things have happened. So ultimately, I do think Jimmy's going to get what Jimmy wants because Jimmy always gets what Jimmy wants. But I'm curious to see the path that they take to get there and how much of it's going to come out of his pocket because I think it's going to be substantially more than half.
I think you're right. To this point, Jimmy's always gotten what he wants. But I think this time is going to be different. I think he's up against a different kind of foe. He's up against multiple foes who are teaming up against him, who are clearly now on the other side of his divided line.
But if he wants to pay for it himself,
he could.
If he went to the county and said, "All right, you got me. I'll pay 3/4 of it, 80%, 90% of it myself," they should let him go. It's better for the area.
I agree with that.
Let him go.
And by the way, that statement, better for the area, I've heard from a lot of folks on both sides of this aisle. I was at NOACA a couple of weeks ago, which is the biggest business cooperative in Northeast Ohio. Yeah. And it was interesting to me how you could tell within 30 seconds of a conversation with someone which side of this fight they're on. Mm-hmm. The people that have Cleveland's interest are 100% entrenched. This is going to decimate the area.
I don't believe that.
I don't either. Now, I talked to a number of people that are on the other side of that fence. In fact, Brad Sellers was at this event, and Brad spoke as well. And he was part of the panel that I was moderating the debate. I was kind of shocked how much Brad was out in the open about how, I don't want to hear about how this is going to decimate Cleveland. This is going to be a massive financial shot in the arm for Northeast Ohio.
Absolutely.
Are we looking at this as it's good for you and only you, so it can't be good for us, or it's good for all of us?
It's good for the region.
And that was Brad's point. Brad was very eloquent, too, and he brought up a case. He said, look, when I played in Seattle, I watched the city fight over whether or not they were going to give the Supersonics what they wanted. And ultimately, they decided, no, we're going to stand tall on our decision, and we're not going to give them what they wanted. And they left, and they've been crying about it ever since. They did all the economic studies that they had done, didn't even come close to what the actual economic impact on the loss of the region was. The Cleveland City Commission and the mayor said that they will lose $30 million a year. Might end up being more than that. However, we talked about this. The area is going to get a Super Bowl. And that means Cleveland's hotels will be filled like they are for the 2016 convention, even more so than they were for, the World Series or the NBA championships or whatever. Nothing brings people to town like a Super Bowl.
We did Behind the Glass this week, and I spoke to this a little bit. First of all, Mayor Bibb, I seen the clip, shout out to WKYC, when he talked about, how people had already started financially invested into the city, how this would be devastating. He talked about the minorities who already can't afford to go to games. They damn sure won't be able to go to games then. As somebody that's 36 that's been born and raised here, and I've primarily worked downtown Cleveland, my entire life. Since I've been 20, I've been working downtown Cleveland, actually right here on Lakeside, just on the other side of Lakeside.
Right.
And so I remember working at the Justice Center, and there was talks then about moving the Justice Center near where the post office is because you didn't want to have that eyesore of a jail right next to a five-star hotel that you had just built up. And the goal was to start building up this lakefront and renovating the downtown area. And I've talked to so many people who are much older than me who have said, Earl, they've been making this same statement all my life. They've been making it all your life. I spoke to the fact that Cleveland has an opportunity to be a visionary. If you got an action plan and you really got a way to go about this, if the Browns decided to move to Brook Park and Jimmy ultimately got what he want, you have an opportunity to do something with that prime piece of real estate. You know, you can do more arts museums, you can do casinos, you can do hotels. How about this? We already got a women's soccer team coming, right? You can do an MLS soccer team right there where the Browns play. If you want to bring an NHL team here, they got somewhere they can go play at. There is so much that you can do with that land. If the plan is still to close Burke in a couple years and 10 years from now, you can still add on after you do this.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this situation from a standpoint of ultimately I think Jimmy is going to get what Jimmy wants. And for the city of Cleveland, do you really want to spend that money, you know, in court fighting this lawsuit when you got a city that got some poverty issues, got some homeless people issues, you know, you got some issues here. Granted, Cleveland is a city on the rise. Murder rate is down. You know, things are looking up. But if the Browns truly, truly wants to move, you have an opportunity to take that money that you set aside that you were going to give the Browns and do some dope ass stuff downtown Cleveland
and get it done.
You got an opportunity to improve some of the issues that we have. So all to me is not lost, right? If the Browns do move from downtown Cleveland, like in the short term, I do think it'll have a financial impact on the city. But in the long term, if you actually map this out right, you have an opportunity to do some great things in this city that had never been done before. Final point on this, you know, I think you have traditionalist Browns fans who are uncomfortable with change, who are used to this team playing on the lakefront, has always been on the lakefront, and they don't want to see that, you know, change. Then you have other people who really do care about the financial impact that it will have on the city of Cleveland. But this is where it's a hair scratcher for me. You know, a lot of people, you know, they get their money and rightfully so, if this is what they want, they move to the suburbs, the surrounding suburbs of Cleveland, and that's where their tax dollars go. And so to me, it's like if you was that vested in the city and making sure the city don't like be decimated, then you could have lived in the city if you wanted to. And so a lot of times to me, these people who are fussing about keeping the Browns in Cleveland are not even residents of the city of Cleveland.
Right, yeah. Those are the ones that are going to be impacted the most.
Exactly.
Residents of the city, because their budget's going to have a $30 million hole in it.
So,
and for a city like us, that's massive.